Soul Garden.
Hello my fellow soul gardeners, and welcome now to Astro 103, where we're going to dive into aspects and predicting the future, predicting the present, figuring out what's going on. Well, I think we have to go through all the planets again. We did this in the first 101 series, defining what the planets are and how they relate to your natal chart. Now when you're talking about planets in transits, there's a subtle difference because it's really kind of like going from an adjective to a verb. It is in motion, it is in action, and they take on some different characteristics. So in this episode, we're going to talk about probably the two most important planets in any given kind of transit, and that is where is the sun and where is the moon. Well, as you know, in a natal chart, the sun represents where your whole life revolves around. That's where you shine the most in your chart. We talked about that in the original series. When we're looking at where the sun is today, the sun today represents what you're focusing on today, okay? So literally you take your chart and you run, like I said, the transits on it at astro.com, or you take your chart and you get an ephemeris and figure out where the planets are and figure out where the sun is. Now, while I'm recording this particular episode, the sun is in Cancer, so let's use that as an example. First of all, you want to look at the solar chart and you want to look at the natal chart. Okay, so remember what I said yesterday, or in the last episode, basically, if you are, let's say, we'll keep it simple. If you have an Aries, if you are an Aries, you put Aries on the rising. If you're a Taurus, you put Taurus as the rising. Gemini, Gemini on the rising, etc., etc. We'll use Aries to keep it simple. If you are an Aries, and you put Aries on the rising, that's the solar chart for what's going on, and the sun right now is in Cancer, so the sun is in the 4th house right now, today. For all Arieses, the sun is in the 4th house during Cancer, which means for all Arieses, they are focused on, their awareness is focused on home, family, and foundation. Every year, the sun makes one rotation around the chart. Every year, we pay attention and upgrade each state of awareness. And as the sun goes around, we focus and we upgrade. This is what the horoscopes are based on. This is how all of the different 12 signs are growing every year. Every year, we just go up a notch, and we go up a notch, and we go up a notch. Also, in your natal chart, there's Cancer somewhere. Let's say you have Cancer on your 7th house cusp. Let's say you have Cancer in the 7th house. Well, then that would mean that when the sun is in Cancer, you're focused on that month, for that 30-day period, you are focused on long-term partnerships. But it's a different focus. You can see how there's two stories going on. We talked about that last week. So let's say you are an Aries with Cancer on the 7th house cusp. So you're an Aries with a Capricorn rising, in other words. As an Aries with a Capricorn rising, as an Aries, you're kind of upgrading your home, family, and foundation as an Aries. And all Arieses on the planet are doing that. That home, family, and foundation upgrade is affecting your marriage in a long-term perspective because the sun is in the 7th in your natal chart. Do you see how that works? So we always have two stories going on at the same time. We always have two focuses going on at the same time, unless we happen to be the same sun and same rising sign. And these are the people that tell me that my horoscopes are incredibly accurate. Well, of course they are. You don't have a second story going on, so it just hits you right on the head. Now, during the transit of the sun in the 7th house, or the sun in the 4th house, or wherever the sun is, the sun goes through 3 chapters. And in the horoscopes, I walk through the progression of the chapters. So you know that you're focused on your home, family, foundation, and in the background, this is affecting and changing your marriage in more of a long-term perspective. And usually chapter 1 of the sun transit, usually things are breaking down. That's what I always find. There's breakdown. The universe is showing you what you have to learn. The universe is showing you what's in the way. Things are going wrong. So the first 10 days of any transit usually sucks, okay, in my experience, to some degree. It kind of depends on two things. For instance, you may be an Aries and you're working on home, family, and foundation, right? But let's say in your natal chart, your sun is in your 4th house. So you're already an expert in home, family, and foundation. So as an Aries, okay, you're not going through as hard of a transit in July as the other Arieses are because you happen to be an expert at it. So there'll be less drama for you in this area this year at this time than other Arieses, or less learning or less growth because you're already an expert at it. Chapter 1 is always the breakdown. How things are breaking down, what's in the way, basically removing our ignorances. As the sun moves into chapter 2, we then in the second 10-day cycle begin to start to look at our alternatives. We begin to learn. We expand on the issue. We go deeper. We find out it wasn't just that our boyfriend or girlfriend was lying to us, but they've been lying to us for 6 months. So it gets deeper. Reality starts to expand. Consciousness expand. Choices expand. And by the second chapter, with the sun anyways, you always know what you don't want anymore. By the end of the second chapter, you're like, okay, I don't want this anymore. And like I always say in the horoscopes, by not wanting one thing, you begin to then start to want another. By chapter 3 of the sun's transit, this is the point where you begin to know what you want. This is when we begin light casting. This is when we begin putting out our intentions. I want this to happen. I want that to happen. We're exploring our options. We're finding solutions. And the universe is providing resources for us to expand our consciousness. We're finding out more than we need. We're going to therapy, whatever it is. So I find that a sun transit is really where all the activity is, both in solar and natal. If you want to know what's going on with you, if you want to know what's going on with one of your clients, you just need to find where the sun is right now in their solar chart, because that's a big piece of their life and their reality, them as an Aries or them as a Taurus and them as any sign. And then you find out where the sun is in their natal chart. This is how it's affecting their long-term story. This is how their life is changing as a result, etc. And these two stories are often going on in very powerful ways, but I find that the solar chart is the most powerful part of the story always. This is why if you watch the horoscopes, you can watch your rising sign and get what's going on in the other story. Because your rising sign is your multi-lifetime or full life perspective, the long-term part of the story. The sun sign is like the immediate plot going on right now. Okay? So look and see where the sun is. Now the moon is the other most important planet. The moon is our emotions. And the moon moves really quickly around the chart, right? It does one rotation in 28 days, whereas the sun takes 365 days to make one rotation around all the states of awareness. So as we go through in 30 days of the sun going through one house, the moon will pass through all the houses in that same time. And it's kind of interesting because here we are, let's go back to our marriage example, our marriage and fourth house example. So for Arieses, they're working on their home, family, and foundation. And the moon moves through all the houses during that entire cycle. So you're working on home, family, and foundation, and then you're feeling about how your inner child feels about it, and how does your reality feel about it in the 6th house, and how does your marriage feel about it in the 7th house, and how does your intimacy affect your intimacy, and how does it affect emotionally your beliefs, and how does it affect your career. So we check in emotionally with the entire spectrum of our state of awarenesses during one 30-day cycle of the sun. And we learn emotionally and physically with our awareness with the sun. Now, that's really what I wanted to start with. We're going to get deeper in the next episode on how to calculate the moon a little bit more. But right now, just check out today for your charts as your soul work. Where is your sun? What's the awareness of your solar chart today? What's the awareness of your emotions in your solar chart? And then the deeper story, how is your emotions being affected? What area of your life? And what area of your life are you focused on? All right, that's all we have for episode 2 of Astro 103, all these numbers. But I'll be back in one more week with more information. Live, love, be.